Welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna change the coolant on my Kia Sedona 2018, but it's the same way to do with the Sorento, even with the Santa Fe with the 3.3 V6. This engine is a pretty good engine, but they have some issues with the head gasket, and this is why you really want to take care of your coolant, because the problem is not really the head gasket, but it's the thread of the head. They strip when you try to remove them. So if you don't change your coolant, it comes acid, and when it comes acid, it starts to eat the head gasket, and eventually you're gonna have a leak and you're gonna have a huge loss of power because the compressor is not gonna be good. And by the way, I'm sorry for my English because my first language is French, but I will try to do my best to be well understand. So forgive me if I make some mistake. So this is why it's really important to change your coolant. In my case, I change it every 2 years because it's so easy and cheap to do, because you can buy those concentrate formula that you can mix with distilled water. Don't worry, I'm gonna show you everything about it, and it's gonna prevent your coolant to turn acid, and in this way you're gonna put all the chance on your side to have not the failure with your head gaskets. And if you are interested to take care of this car, I got a lot of videos about maintenance of the Kia Sedona / Sorento, because they share the same platform, the same mechanics, even if they are not 4x4. Okay, so let's dive in it. So this is the coolant reservoir on the side, and it's normal if your level is at the half between the full and the low. So by the way, the coolant system on every car is sealed. So if you lost coolant and your reservoir is empty, it's because you got a leak. Okay, it's not something that you have to refill every 3 or 2 months. This is a seal system, so maybe your water pump leaking, maybe your hose start to dripping, or your radiator is there's a hole in your radiator. And how to know if your coolant is done to be changed? You can buy those kind of strips that you can wet with the coolant, and it's gonna tell you if it's acid and the condition of the coolant. But to be honest, it's a little bit too expensive. I think it's around 40 bucks to a box of stripes. So anyway, I don't care. I change it every 2 years and I don't have any problem with it. You can also buy those kind of little pump, which is gonna only indicate you if your mix is okay, if your protection is good enough to not have a boil problem or even freezing problem. So what you got to do, you just have to remove the radiator cap, sorry. And by the way, my engine is cold, so that's what you want. You want to work with a cold engine, because if you try to remove this cap, there's a lot of pressure inside of those systems when they are hot. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna turn it like this, and at this point you're gonna push and turn again to release it. Okay, and now you can take your little pump and full the reservoir. So the little arrow, the red arrow, gonna show you what is your protection. So we are at the maximum. So my coolant offer me a great protection against boiling and freezing, but I don't know if it's acid or not. So this is why I don't take chance with it, and I change it every 2 years. It's so cheap. That's so cheap. You really want to take care of this. This is fun, trust me. I'm gonna put it back because I have to put the car in the ramps, on the ramps. But when you're gonna drain the radiator, make sure to remove it, because it's gonna let air enter inside of the radiator and make the coolant flow much more faster. If you are on the ramps, it's a good idea to push the parking brake And if you got some issue with the system, I got a nice video about the rear brakes, and I talk about and show you how to replace the parking brake. So now we're gonna go underneath the car and you're gonna need to have access under the radiator to access to the petcock. The petcock is the valve to release the coolant inside of the radiator. Okay, so now we got a couple of 10s and a couple of plastic screws like this to remove. A lot of times those bolts are already rusted, so take your time to brush it or try to remove the rust around it, and take your time to make sure that your socket is really get it correctly, because you can easily strip those bolts, and if it's happened, you can always use those kind of bolt extractor. They work really well, and I recommend you to use a ratchet instead of an impact. You got less chance to strip them. So this is the plastic. You get 10 millimeters to remove and 2 plastic screws at the end. And to remove those plastic screws, you just have to lift the top with a flat screwdriver to remove them. Okay, so now I'm under the car, and as you see right there, this is the back of the car. So this is the front, and right there in this hole at the passenger side, you see right there, this is where the coolant is gonna flow out. And now at the top of this, you see right there, this is the petcock valve. So this is what you got to turn to let the coolant goes out. So you can take your hand or a set of pliers to carefully just turn it on the opposite side. Now it's time to place the bucket just under it. Make sure that you got enough capacity to hold 2 gallons. So now I'm here with my pliers, my long nose pliers, and carefully try to open it. It's really easy, you can do it by hand, and you just have to unscrew it slowly. This is why you want to work on a coal engine, because you can burn yourself. Okay, so I remove it completely. You can left it on it, but this is what looks the petcock valve. And now I'm gonna open the cap on the top of the radiator to increase the flow of the coolant. Whoops. Okay, I make a mess. So you're gonna let this coolant drain out slowly like this for a couple of minutes. I'm gonna show you how much time it takes to get it fully empty. And by the way, when you do this job, the goal is not to change every ounces of the coolant. The goal is to replace the half of the system, because you cannot drain out completely the coolant inside of the engine or everywhere inside of every crevasses, because first of all, in the top hose of your stem you got this part. This is a thermostat, and it will open with the pressure. So when the coolant is hot enough, the pressure raise and push against this, and when it push against this, it let flow the coolant inside of the radiator. So this is why you cannot purge every ounces of this system, but it's not our main concern, because if you do like me and you change your coolant every 2 years, coolant can last much more longer than 2 years. In this case, they claim to get protection against corrosion of 250,000 kilometers. So this is really huge. I'm not gonna bet on this formula, because I don't trust those magical proclamation. But to be honest, if you change your coolant every 2 or 3 years in the max, you're never gonna have some acid problem. So even if you just change the half of the system every 2 years, at the end of the day, you're never gonna have a coolant older than 4 years. So in 4 years, did you really gonna make 250,000 kilometers? I doubt about it. So now it flows again and takes just a couple of minutes. And what I gotta do, I'm gonna put the car out of the ramps to make it level. Okay, so what you can do, you can put back the petcock if you are able, and try to remove it, or you can use a jack to do this job, because you're gonna make the car level level to the ground, and it's gonna be better to get more coolant out of the stem. But what I gotta try to do, I'm gonna remove the ramps, and I'm gonna put the ramps at the rear of the car, just to make the rear lift a little bit, just to see if we can extract more coolant. But like I said before, don't go crazy with that. This is not the goal, to extract every ounce of this system. Just want to maintenance that. It's the same with the transmission. You're just gonna have to remove the half of the system or so. Okay, so now I'm gonna start the car and get it out of the ramps. But you may ask, you're gonna start the car without the coolant side of it. Coolant is just there to protect the engine against overheating, okay? And yes, it lubricate the water pump, but it's okay if you run the car for 12 seconds just to deplace it. So make sure that your petcock is closed, and I'm gonna just remove the car from the ramps and try to jack a little bit the rear to see if I can extract more coolant. So the rear of the car is slightly on the ramps, and yes, it works. I extract more coolant in this way, and I get enough room for the pan, and I can easily take my arm under it to remove the petcock. So I recommend you to do this. Okay, so now you can buy a pre-mix formula, but it's way cheaper. The way that I'm gonna show you, you can buy some concentrate formula, and this one is formulated expressly for Hyundai and Kia. You can buy those Coolant brand, Preston brand, sorry. They are made for every brand, but I really want to get the right formula, because I want to avoid any issues with the head gasket. And by the way, I heard about a warranty from Kia about those issues. If your engine fails with the head gasket and you break and you have to remove the heads, and something happen with your threads of your heads, I think Kia offer a warranty, so they can replace this engine even if they blow on the base of the engine. So make sure to keep your receipt from your oil change or any maintenance that you do. I know that Kia offer a warranty. They extend it. I think it's somewhere around 240,000 kilometers, something like that, but I'm not sure about it. I just hear about it. So now you're gonna take an empty water windshield gallon. So you're gonna split the gallon in 2 parts. So the first part is gonna be the coolant, to be sure that you're gonna have a 50-50 ratio. Make sure to work on a level surface, so I'm gonna put it on the ground to see if it's level. Next, we're gonna take some distilled water. Don't put tap water to make your mix, because tap water got a lot of minerals and contamination, so you're gonna create some corrosion inside of the system. It's exactly what you don't want to have. So make sure to use pure water, like demineralized water or distilled water, but for the same price, distilled water is the top. So now I'm gonna add another half gallon of water. Okay, and now my radiator is completely empty. It takes around 15 minutes to make it completely empty. So I'm gonna measure how much we extract of the system, and now we're gonna put back the petcock and fill back the system again. And there's 3 ways to do it. I'm gonna show you the better way, the good way, and the okay way. Okay, so if we go at the manual owner, I'm sorry it's in French, but they said that it's the liquid for the coolant, and like you see, we got 11.5 liter of coolant in the system, and it's a ethylene based glycol blend. So make sure that you got this blend for your engine. And as you see, I remove the coolant reservoir. There's only 210 millimeters, just one there and one there, and I unplug the little hose that goes to the radiator. So now I'm gonna be able to really drain out the rest of the reservoir. So I make a little while you're in there, so I clean the reservoir because I got it on hand. And if you want to extract a real lot of coolant or make a flush, this is where you're gonna have to remove your thermostat, the part that I showed you before, to really let the engine flow, because this thermostat only gonna open at the precise temperature. So if you remove it, the coolant will flow and flow and flow again and 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 again. Okay, sorry. And so you can remove those 3 bolts and you're gonna have access to the thermostat. And now, as you see, we remove almost 3 liter of coolant. So if you really want to remove more fluid of it, you can always throw this complete gallon inside of it, run the car a couple of minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes, and flush the system back again. But if you want to do this, I really recommend you to remove the thermostat, because if the thermostat is not open, the coolant inside of the block will never get in contact with the coolant inside of the radiator. So this is why you can do this at every 2 years. If at every 2 years you change 3 liters of the 11 liters, it will be fine. So make it to your schedule and change it every 2 years, and it's gonna be fine. And now, how you can fill back your system. The cheaper way is to please use a bigger funnel than this one, but it's just to show you. So fold your system with the funnel and make sure there's coolant inside of the funnel, and let the car run for 30 minutes, and you're gonna see air burps out of this funnel, because your system have to be burp. What means burp is that you remove all the air inside of the system, and this is the tricky part, because if you let some air inside the system, you can get some overheat issues. So you really want to make sure that it's fine. So this is the cheaper way, the way that I not really like, but it's okay. And now this is the cheap but better way. This kind of coolant funnel is really nice, because you got a lot of adapters that you can put on the radiator, and you can fold it, and you got a stick to block the coolant at the end of it, so you don't make mess when you remove the funnel. So this is a great way to do it. And then I'm gonna show you my favorite way. This kit may look expensive, but it's less than $100. So this way is really quick, because you're gonna suck every air inside of the system. even your hose gonna collapse because you are in negative pressure, so you are on vacuum. And what it's gonna do, when you're gonna put back the coolant in it, there's not gonna have any air inside of it, because you remove all the air, and the suction that create inside of the stem is gonna suck every ounce of coolant that you got on your bucket. So this is really the way to go, and this system is not that expensive, but you have to use an air shop compressor like this. I'm gonna show you how it works. It may light, so it can seem to be complicated, but it's not. Okay, so it was the first time for me to use this system. I make it a couple of tests to know what I do before to show you. But basically the kit came with this hose with a little screen filter, so you know that this hose should be inside of your fresh coolant bottle like this. And as you see, there's a valve for this one. So this valve gonna let your coolant flows inside your system. So this, like this, it's open. When the valve is in the way of the hose, it's open, and like this it's closed. Okay, so we're gonna close every valve. And this valve right there, this is a valve. It's the valve that let your air compress shop flows or not. So push it, or just like this, you can control if you let air or not and goes inside of the stem. You don't have to get a big compressed air. You don't have to get a big air compressor. Mine is very tiny. Okay, so just like this. And now you're gonna take your cone adapter that you're gonna put on the radiator cap. Sorry for my English. So the cone is attached into your radiator cap, just like this. Okay, now you got your hose for your coolant, and this is just an exit for the system, so air goes out of this pipe. If I push the orange tab just like this, and those two valves are closed, that means that I let air goes out of my compressor. Okay, but if I open, this is the venturi valve. Okay, so when you're gonna push compressed air in the system and open the venturi valve, it's gonna create a suction inside of the blue hose. Okay, so what we want is to get somewhere around 20 or 25 mercury of inch of vacuum inside of the system. When you're gonna turn on the compressor, it should goes up quickly, very quickly. If it won't comes up, it's because you got a huge leak somewhere. I know it because I try it directly on the reservoir of the coolant, and the pressure won't come up. So what I do, I disconnect the little hose at the bottom of the coolant reservoir. I take a plier like this, but because this pipe is relied just right there to the radiator, so I block this hose just like this. So now my system is sealed and I can create vacuum. Okay, so now what I gotta do, I'm gonna turn on my compressor. It's full of air, and now I'm gonna open the venturi valve just like this. Okay, and now I'm gonna open the orange tab. It's gonna let the air compress goes inside the venturi valve and suck all the air inside of the system. And take a look to your hose of your radiator. They're gonna collapse. It's normal because you create a lot of suction inside of the stem. So now I'm gonna open the venturi valve until I'm gonna reach the 20-25 inch of mercury. So I'm gonna open it slowly. Sorry. So I open the air shaft, and as you see, I'm just on the 20-inch. Sometimes I'm very close to the 20-inch, so I'm gonna let my compressor run a couple of seconds to give a chance to suck everything, because this is a really tiny compressor. So I'm gonna let it full and restart the process to reach more inch of mercury. Okay, so now I'm gonna complete the venturi. So just like this, as you see, I'm between 20 and 25. That's perfect, okay? And now what we're gonna do, we want to bleed. I'm gonna put that there. So we're gonna bleed the air inside of this vacuum hose, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open the venturi valve, okay? And let the coolant flow. Just like this. So as you see, it's happened very quickly, but what I do, I let the suction goes out of this hose with opening the venturi valve, okay? And because if I let it close, the coolant will go inside of the system right there, okay? So I let air escape from the venturi from this hose, and I quickly open this valve right there to let the coolant flows and try to goes out of this hose. So now I bleed all the air. I know the Preston is, the coolant, sorry, is very clear, you cannot see, but this hose is full of coolant actually, and there is no air at all, okay? Because if you don't bleed this hose, all the air and go inside of this hose will go inside of your system. So this is why. And you, if you're not sure, you can always remove this hose and suck with your mouth the coolant, but make sure to not to let the coolant not goes inside your mouth, because this is very toxic, okay? So you can just suck a little bit and squeeze the hose and plug it back to make sure there is no air inside of it. Okay, so I'm gonna create again the venturi. So open the compressor valve and the venturi. Okay, so just like this, I'm gonna show you. So as you see, your coolant hose is completely collapsed because there's a vacuum inside of the system. And when you're gonna be able to create vacuum like this, you know that your system is sealed, so you don't have any leak. So that's a good thing. So now what we're gonna do, we're just gonna open the valve of the coolant, this one, and check it out. Gonna start to suck the coolant until the pressure is gonna be to 0. That's magic and very quick. So you don't have to mess with burping your system and be don't sure if air pockets are left inside of the stem. In this way, you know that everything is good and you don't have to care about air inside of your system, and it's very quick. So I'm gonna let it suck all the coolant, and once it's done, I'm gonna show you the rest. Okay, so now the venturi pressure is at 0, so we know that the system is full. So I'm gonna remove my air compress line. I'm gonna remove this hose right there. I'm gonna close it, release it to don't make mess, just like this. Okay, I'm gonna take my gallon out. I'm gonna remove this cone, just like this. Look at this. The coolant is flush, so you be sure that no air is trapped inside your system, so you can go in peace. So this is why I really like this system. At the first time, I know that it can be intimidated, but trust me, this is really easy. You just have to play with valve and you will quickly understand how it works, or just listen my video a couple of times. I know in video it's not easy to understand, but trust me, that was my first time with this system, and after 3 minutes I understand how it works. Okay, and now we're gonna put back this hose to the reservoir just like this, and now we're gonna fill back the reservoir with the rest of our coolant gallon. Just like this. I'm gonna press it like this, and now we're gonna fill the reservoir slightly over the half, because you won't let some space to the air, because the coolant can expand sometimes. So somewhere like this. I'm gonna close the cap and put back the coolant cap. There's 2 grooves to match with the cover, and that's it. You done a coolant replacement on your Kia Sedona or Kia Sorento. But like you see, I just replenished somewhere around 1 gallon of coolant. This is really cheap, and you can do this operation a couple of times if you really want to flush the old stuff. In my case, they changed the water pump 2 years ago, so I know that they do the process I show you today. But if you want to do it every 2 years, you're gonna be in peace. Okay, so this is really cheap. I know that this system is not that cheap. It costs around 80 bucks, so somewhere around 80 bucks, but it's a great, and you can rent those kind of tools. You can put on this kind of system on marketplace, and you can rent this kit to your friend, and you got all the adapters. And this is the cheap one from China, but you can buy some quality one for 120 bucks, something around that. So if you like the video and you like how I done my things, leave me a thumbs up. If you got any question, I will be there to answer you, and I hope it's gonna convince you to do the job by yourself. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.